We are counting down the 20 forgotten farm tools every American boy learned to use before 1965. Tools that built this country 1 acre at a time, that turned soft hands hard and turned boys into men long before they ever finished school. From blades that swung at dawn to gadgets that fed a family straight through the Depression, each one carries the story of sweat, thrift, and pure grit. Expect calloused palms, dangerous edges, and skills that vanished the very day the tractor first rolled into the yard. Which forgotten tool tops the list? Let us begin our countdown with number 20. Number 20. The corn husking peg sat in a boy's pocket the way a phone sits in yours today. A simple hook of iron or bone strapped across the palm with a leather thong, it let a farm boy tear the shucks off an ear of corn in a single, practiced flick. Before mechanical pickers crawled the fields, the autumn harvest came down to hands, and every hand in the family worked the rows from frost to dark. A good husker could fill a wagon box with 70, 80 bushels in a day, the ears thumping against the bang board in a steady rhythm that carried clear across the valley. Boys learned the motion by Halloween and felt it in their wrists by Thanksgiving. Husking bees drew whole neighborhoods together, and the boy who found a red ear earned a kiss or a nickel, depending on the company. When the mechanical corn picker arrived after the war, the peg dropped from pockets almost overnight. Today it turns up in junk drawers and antique bins, a small iron ghost of the season that once defined a farm boy's October. Number 19. The hay knife looked like something out of a nightmare, a long serrated blade with a T-handle gripped in both fists, and a boy learned its weight the first time the hayloft ran low in January. Loose hay packed into a mow over the summer settled hard as brick by midwinter, and the only way down to the cattle was to saw it apart in heavy blocks. A boy braced his boots, drove the blade straight down, and worked it back and forth until a slab broke free and tumbled to the floor below. The dust rose thick and golden in the cold barn light, sticking to sweat and crawling down the collar. It was brutal, repetitive work, done before school and again after. Every single morning the snow stayed on the ground. When balers began wrapping hay into neat squares, a boy could simply lift and toss. The long knife lost its purpose. It hung on barn nails for decades, rusting quietly, a relic of the days when even the hay fought back. Number 18. The corn knife was nothing fancy, just a heavy machete-like blade with a wooden grip. But in the hands of a farm boy, it brought down a whole field of standing corn for fodder. Before silage, choppers, families cut corn by hand, the boy gripping a stalk in one fist and slicing it clean at the base with a single swing. The cut stalks were gathered into shocks, tied and stood upright like little teepees across the stubble, where they cured in the sun for winter feed. The work tore at the hands and bent the back, and a careless swing could cost a toe, so fathers watched the younger ones close. The smell of cut corn stalks, green and sharp, hung over the whole farm in September. A field of finished shocks was a thing of quiet pride, proof a family had its winter handled. When the tractor-drawn chopper made shocking obsolete, the corn knife slipped to the back of the shed, remembered only by the men whose palms still carried its calluses. Number 17. The hand corn sheller turned a chore that ate whole evenings into something a boy could manage alone, and that made it a treasure in every farmhouse. Dried ears went into the hopper, the boy turned the crank, and inside, an iron wheel studded with teeth stripped the kernels clean off the cob in a rattling stream that poured into a waiting bucket. A good sheller could clear a bushel in minutes, kernels for the chickens, cobs for the stove or the smokehouse. Sears sold them by the thousands through the mail, and a sturdy one cost a few dollars and lasted 2 generations. On winter nights, the steady crank and clatter became the soundtrack of the kitchen, the boy turning while his sisters sorted and his mother darned. Nothing was wasted, not the kernel, not the cob, not the evening. When grain elevators and combines began shelling corn in the field, the hand crank fell silent. Today it sits bolted to a workbench somewhere, admired but never turned, a machine that once measured out 1,000 quiet evenings. Number 16. The fanning mill was the boy's introduction to the science of clean seed, a wooden box of cranks, screens, and a hand-driven fan that separated good seed from chaff, dirt, and weed. After threshing, the harvest came in mixed with everything, and a farmer who planted dirty seed reaped a dirty crop. So the boy fed grain into the top, cranked the handle steady, and watched as the fan blew the light trash out one end while the heavy kernels dropped clean through the sieves below. Getting the speed right was an art. Too fast and good seed flew out with the chaff. Too slow and the weed seeds stayed behind. The mill rattled and hummed in the granary, dust hanging in every shaft of light. A family's whole next year rode on that clean seed, and a boy who learned the fanning mill learned that the harvest was never truly done until the grain was pure. Commercial seed cleaning and certified seed bought by the bag made the home mill obsolete, and the great wooden boxes were broken up for scrap or left to the mice. Number 15. The Froe was the tool that gave a farm its roof, a wedge of steel with a handle set at a right angle, used to split shingles and clapboards from a block of oak or cedar. A boy set the Froe along the grain, struck the back with a wooden mallet called a club, and twisted, popping a clean board free with a sound like a snapping bone. Riving shingles by Froe was slow, deliberate work, but it cost nothing but timber and time, and a boy who mastered it could roof the chicken house, the smokehouse, even the barn. The split followed the wood's own grain, so a Froe-rived shingle shed water for 40 years, where a sawn one rotted in 10. The smell of fresh split oak filled the woodlot, and a stack of finished shingles meant a family stayed dry through the storms. When sawmills and asphalt shingles made hand-riving pointless, the Froe vanished into toolboxes, its strange shape baffling the grandsons who found it. Number 14. The draw knife shaped nearly everything wooden on the farm, a long blade with a handle at each end that a boy pulled toward himself to peel and carve. Astride a shaving horse that clamped the work tight, he stripped bark from fence rails, rounded an axe handle, tapered a wagon spoke, or smoothed a yoke until it sat easy on an ox's neck. The blade bit deep or skimmed light depending on the angle, and learning that touch separated the careless from the craftsman. Curls of wood piled at his boots, the air sharp with the smell of fresh shavings. A boy who could handle a draw knife never had to buy a tool handle in his life, and a broken implement meant a few hours' work, not a trip to town. It taught patience and a feel for grain that stayed in the fingers forever. When factory-made handles filled the hardware store shelves cheap, the draw knife and the shaving horse retired together, kept only by the men who still trusted their own two hands. Number 13, the Cant hook and its bigger cousin, the peavey, gave a boy leverage over logs that outweighed him 10 times over. A stout wooden handle with a hinged iron hook, it bit into a log's bark and let one person roll, turn, and position timber that no man could budge with his bare arms. In the woodlot every winter, families cut the year's fuel and fence timber, and the boy worked the Cant hook to roll logs onto the sawbuck, or line them up for the crosscut. Done wrong, a rolling log could crush a leg, so a boy learned respect along with technique. The hook clicked and bit, the log groaned and turned, and slowly a tangle of fallen timber became an orderly pile ready for the saw. It was the difference between a winter's wood gathered and a winter spent cold. When chainsaws and skidders and hydraulic loaders took over the timber, the Cant hook hung up in the barn, its iron hook still sharp, waiting for a job that never came back. Number 12. The post hole digger, the old clamshell kind with 2 long handles and 2 hinged blades, built every fence line in America one bite of earth at a time. A boy drove the blades into the ground, spread the handles to grab a clump of dirt, and lifted it free, then did it again and again, 18 inches down, dozens of times a day. Stretching a quarter mile of fence meant hundreds of holes, everyone dug by hand in soil that ran from soft loam to rock-studded clay. The blisters came first, then the calluses, then a wiry strength a boy carried into manhood. Fathers measured a son's growing up by how many holes he could dig before the sun got high. A straight fence was a matter of family honor, visible to every neighbor who drove past. When tractor-mounted augers could bore a hole in seconds, the hand digger was mostly retired, though it lingered longer than most, still hanging in barns for the one stubborn corner the auger couldn't reach. Number 11. The grain cradle was the scythe's elegant cousin, fitted with a frame of long wooden fingers that caught the cut grain and laid it in a neat row instead of scattering it. Before the McCormick reaper reached every farm, wheat and oats came down by the swing of a cradle, and it took a strong young man to wield one all day. The boy stepped, swung, and twisted in one fluid motion, the blade slicing a swath and the fingers gathering it clean, dropping a tidy bundle for the binders walking behind. A skilled cradler could cut 2 or 3 acres in a day, and harvest crews moved across the country following the ripening grain, the best men earning real wages. The rhythm was hypnotic, the field falling in waves under the morning sun. It was the hardest, proudest work a farm boy could do, and the man who could cradle from dawn to dusk was respected for miles. The horse-drawn reaper and later the combine ended the cradle's reign, retiring one of the most demanding skills the land ever asked of a boy. Number 10. The Treadle grindstone kept the whole farm sharp, a great round stone of sandstone turned by a foot pedal, often with a small can dripping water onto the wheel to keep it cool. Every blade on the place came to it, the scythe, the axe, the corn knife, the plow point, the kitchen shears. A boy pumped the treadle to keep the stone spinning while he or his father held the edge at just the right angle, sparks and slurry flying as the metal took its bite. A dull tool was a dangerous tool and a slow one, so Saturday often meant an hour at the grindstone, the steady scrape filling the yard. Learning the angle, the pressure, the patience, that was a rite every boy passed through, and a poorly ground edge earned a sharp word from a father who depended on it: Monday. The stone wore down hollow over the years, a record of 1,000 sharpenings. Electric grinders and bench stones made the old wheel obsolete, and the great sandstone discs ended up as garden stepping stones, their working days forgotten. Number 9. The brace and bit drilled every hole the farm ever needed before the electric drill arrived with rural electrification. A boy gripped the wooden knob, cranked the offset handle in slow circles, and watched the auger bit bore clean through oak, pine, or even a wagon hub. Building a gate, hanging a barn door, pegging a timber frame, fixing a harness, all of it started with a hole drilled by hand. A set of bits in graduated sizes was a prized possession, kept oiled and wrapped in a roll of cloth. The boy leaned his chest into the knob for pressure and turn, the shaving spiraling up out of the wood in long curls. It demanded a steady arm to keep the hole true, and a crooked bore meant a wobbly joint in a lecture. The tool taught precision and patience in equal measure. When cords and batteries put a drill in every hand, the brace went to the back of the toolbox, admired for its honest craftsmanship, but spun by no one. Number 8. The buck saw cut the firewood that kept a family alive through every northern winter, a simple 8-shaped wooden frame strung tight with a narrow blade. Set across a sawbuck, a log met the boy's steady push and pull, the saw singing through the wood until the round dropped and the next was hauled up. A farmhouse burned cords upon cords each winter for heat and cooking, and cutting that wood was a chore that never truly ended, only paused with spring. The rhythm of the buck saw, the rasp in the falling sawdust, was the sound of a boy earning his keep before breakfast. His arms ached, his breath fogged, and the woodpile grew log by patient log against the coming cold. A well-stocked woodshed was a family's insurance against death by January. When the chainsaw screamed into the woodlot and propane warmed the house, the buck saw stilled, hung on a nail in the woodshed as a reminder of mornings when warmth had to be earned one stroke at a time. Number 7. The Mattock did the work too heavy for a hoe and too stubborn for a shovel. A brutal tool with an axe blade on one side of its head and a broad adze on the other. A boy swung it to grub out tree stumps, break new ground, chop through roots, and dig the trenches and holes that a farm forever demanded. When a family cleared a new field, the Mattock came out first, hacking through the root mat that no plow could break. It was punishing labor, the kind that left a boy's hands raw and his shoulders burning, but it was how wild land became farmland. The thud of steel into clay echoed across the bottom land all spring. A boy who could swing a mattock all morning had crossed into the company of men who worked the earth with their backs. Backhoes and bulldozers eventually did in an hour what once took a family a week, and the mattock was left to lean in the corner of the shed, its handle worn smooth by hands that no longer needed it. Number 6. The hay hook fit a boy's hand like it was made for him, a curved steel point with a wooden grip that let him grab and drag a hay bale far heavier than he was. When loose hay gave way to baled hay, the hook became the badge of every farm kid old enough to work the wagon. He'd sink the point into a bale, swing it onto the rack, stack it tight, then do it again. 60, 80, 100 bales under a blazing summer sun until the loft was full. The chaff stuck to his sweat, his forearms grew ropey, and the hook became an extension of his arm. Haying season was the great trial of the farm summer. Neighbors trading work, the boys racing the rain to get the crop in dry. A full barn meant fed cattle and a family that made it through. Bigger round bales, handled only by tractors, made the hand hook nearly useless, and it slipped into a coffee can of forgotten tools, its point still sharp and waiting. Number 5. The pitchfork was the most universal tool a farm boy ever touched. 3 or 4 steel tines on a long ash handle, and a boy's whole childhood seemed measured in forkfuls. He pitched loose hay onto the wagon and off again, forked manure from the barn each morning, turned the compost, spread the straw, lifted the bundles at threshing time. It was the first real tool a small boy was handed, and often the last an old man set down. Light enough for a child, it still demanded a knack. A roll of the wrists that lifted a heavy load with ease or wrenched a careless back. The fork leaned by every barn door in America, polished smooth by 100 years of palms. To pitch hay from sunup to sundown was simply what it meant to grow up on the land. Mechanical loaders and skid steers took over the heavy lifting, but the pitchfork lingered longer than almost any tool on this list, because some jobs a machine still couldn't be bothered to do. Even so, the boy who lived by it is mostly gone now. Number 4. The crosscut saw, the two mankind the loggers nicknamed the misery whip, brought down the timber that built the barns, the houses, and the fences of rural America. A long, flexible blade with a handle at each end, it took 2 to run it. One boy on each side, pulling in turn, never pushing, letting the saw do the cutting in a steady give and take. Felling a big oak or bucking it into logs could take an hour of unbroken rhythm, and the second a partner pushed instead of pulled, the blade buckled and the work stalled. It was the truest lesson in teamwork a boy ever got, 2 people moving as one or getting nowhere at all. The saw sang its rasping song through the winter woods, sawdust piling in the snow, breath steaming, the great tree finally groaning and crashing down. A boy who learned the misery whip learned to trust the man across the log. The chainsaw silenced it forever, and the long blade now hangs as barn decoration, its teeth dull, its partnership dissolved. Number 3, the hand corn planter, the jab planter, every boy in the Corn Belt knew, dropped the seed that fed the heartland one hill at a time. A wooden tool with 2 handles and a pointed metal jaw, the boy stabbed it into the prepared soil, squeezed the handles, and dropped a few kernels into the ground, then stepped a pace and did it again, all the way down the row and back. Planting the back 40 meant thousands of jabs in a long spring day, walking miles bent over the warm earth. It seemed endless, but there was a meditation to it. The smell of turned soil, the killdeer calling, the straight rows stretching toward the fence. A boy planted the family's whole year with his own 2 hands, and the harvest that came up was his harvest too. The horse-drawn planter and then the tractor rig made the hand jabber obsolete almost overnight, replaced by machines that planted 40 rows while a boy walked one. The little wooden planter went to the attic, holding the memory of 1,000 careful steps. Number 2, the Singletree, also called the whiffle tree, was the heart of the harness, the pivoting wooden bar that connected a horse or mule to whatever it pulled, a plow, a wagon, a harrow, a sled. Without it, all the power of a team meant nothing. And a boy learned to hitch one before he learned much else, because the day began and ended with the animals. He'd swing the trace chains onto the hooks, set the Singletree just right so the pull stayed even, and feel the whole rig come alive as the team leaned into the load. A balanced hitch meant a horse that worked all day. A careless one meant a galled, hurting animal, and a hard talk with his father. The creak of leather, the jingle of chain, the smell of horse and sweat, that was the daily music of the farm. The Singletree carried the entire weight of the working horse age, and when the tractor replaced the team, it carried away an entire way of life. The pivoting bars became porch decorations, swinging light fixtures, mute symbols of the partnership between a boy and his team. Number 1, the scythe. Crowned the farm as the oldest, most demanding, and most respected tool a boy ever lifted. A long curved blade on a graceful bent handle called a snath, swung in great arcs to cut hay, grain, and weeds before any machine could. Mastering the scythe was the true rite of passage, because it punished every mistake. A wrong angle dulled the blade, a wrong stance threw out the back, a careless swing could open a shin to the bone. The boy learned to let the blade do the work, to step into the swing, to keep the edge whetted keen with the stone he carried in a water-filled holster on his belt. A skilled mower moved through the grass in a quiet, tireless rhythm, the swath falling clean behind him, the only sound the slice of steel and the soft hiss of the falling stems. To mow alongside the grown men from dawn until the dew returned at dusk was the moment a boy knew he had become one of them. No tool demanded more or gave back more pride. The mower and the baler retired the scythe from the fields, and though it hung longest in the barns and lingered longest in memory, the boy who could truly swing one has all but vanished from the land. From the little husking peg in number 20 to the timeless scythe at the very top, these 20 forgotten tools tell the story of a vanished American boyhood, one measured not in screens and games, but in blisters, sweat, and skill. Some, like the Mattock and the misery whip, were brutal trials of strength. Others, like the draw knife and the brace and bit, asked for patience and a craftsman's touch. The thread that runs through everyone is self-reliance, the quiet knowledge that a boy raised on these tools could feed, fence, build, and warm a family with his own 2 hands. The tractor and the combine gave us plenty, but they took these skills with them when they came. These tools are more than rusted iron in a barn. They are the calloused, capable hands of a generation that built this country, and the proof that a boy once grew into a man with a blade in his grip and the whole farm depending on him.